All right, welcome to the Future Jam, show where we talk about current and future tech and how it kind of affects us as a human race. And today I'm here with Alex again. Hey Alex, how's it going?
Hey everybody, I'm good. How you doing, Mike?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Trying to avoid the news and anything regarding elections because I don't want that in my life right now.
Yeah, it's a nice thing about recording right now. We don't have to follow the election coverage, and after this, I'll probably watch Real Steel.
Yeah, that's actually a good movie to avoid hearing anything at all because it's about a fictional robot boxing another fictional robot, and you know what's better than that?
Really, nothing. It's a surprisingly really good movie, I think. Good family movie.
Yeah, get the whole kids down, and you know, there's no bloodshed or anything like that because they're two robots just going at it. So you know, what could go wrong?
Robots can go mad and start attacking people.
I feel like that trope has been played out so much since special effects have gotten so cheap that pretty much every movie that's like an action movie has to have robots in it now.
I'm not sure. Name 5 of them.
Transformers, all 5. But speaking of pointless things, not that elections are pointless, but
well, Mike, you get mad at pointless technology. You really like technology, and when then something's pointless, you just get mad. Like, why would somebody do this? And you throw like a hissy fit about it. So we're starting a list of pointless technology that Mike hates.
And since we don't eat lunch with each other all the time like we used to, you used to hear me like rail on about this type of stuff. Now, this is the only way I can get it out. Right here. You know, we're supposed to be wearing masks in this country right now, I think. And a company is trying to profit off this by releasing a mask with a built-in Bluetooth headphones. And it's got like a ridiculous name called the Mask Phone.
Yeah, it's just a mask where it has a little pouch that puts the headphones in. And you just put them right up to your ear. Supposedly it has a little spot that you can push the mask for play and the volume up and down buttons.
Yeah, there's printed on the mask as a play button and like a volume up and down. But it's like not the headphones are not even designed for the mask. They just grabbed a piece of pair of headphones off a store shelf somewhere and just kind of included it in with the mask.
Yeah, they're really cheap headphones. I mean, they work, but they're not good headphones. You can just get AirPods or Beats or something like that, or even the other brands of the headphones and wear those.
You can literally wear any pair of headphones with this. Yeah. You can just literally wear anything. And when I first saw this, I thought it was ridiculous because I thought that you had to wash the headphones with the mask, but then I read further and you could pull the headphones out. But first I'm like, how would you even take these headphones out? So they're a little smarter than I thought they were, but they're still dumb.
Well, and it's $50. I feel like it's a steep price for not very good headphones and a mask. Supposedly the mask is comfortable.
Oh, yeah. So if you're in the market for a comfortable, useless piece of tech, then the Mask Phone is right up your alley.
I might get it. I think I'm going to get it for every member of my family for Christmas.
That would be one of those things I would get in a gift and just kind of look at the person who gave it to me and pretend like I'm excited and then just stick it somewhere in a closet way up high in the corner somewhere.
I hope Hannah gets it for you.
She doesn't give me anything for Christmas.
That's true.
Speaking of useless technology, you found a story that has been going around recently about Walmart.
Yeah, last year Walmart announced that they were introducing these shelf scanning robots to go through the shelves and see what items are out of stock and what needs to be replenished and all. So they were putting all this money into it. They had them in 1,000 stores. And then now they just announced that they're doing away with that because so much of the pickup delivery, the employees actually have to go into the shelves and pick up items so they can just do the inventory there, see what items are close to out of stock and all. So
it's kind of redundant now.
Yeah, everybody says robots are taking our jobs, but we're taking them back, Mike. We're taking our
them back. One Walmart at a time. We're taking them back. Also, I bet you these Walmarts were just clogging up the aisles. So, like, when people are trying to get their order, they'd just be bumping into this slow-moving robot that's trying to, like, not run over customers and also employees and try to count in store shelves and nonsense like that.
Yeah, they're like 6 feet tall, so they're really big. But, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Walmart was trying to do it to save on, like, not hiring as many employees. But if you're going to need those employees anyway and they're already dealing with the items, you don't need to put all this money in technology that is redundant, like you said.
Yeah, and I feel like they're just going to redirect that to some other tech. So they're not done with adding tech into stores, obviously. It's just, this was just something they tried out and it didn't work, and they'll try something else out eventually. And we'll probably cover that on the show, I'm sure.
And I know for like grocery stores and all that, the biggest worry for a lot of like items is out of stock. As they're losing money. I know local grocery store chain here is that part of the employees' bonuses at the main office is based off like how often the items are out of stock and they're not buying enough or for the demand. So it's really a important part of like their job. So they want to keep track of that inventory.
Actually, my brother-in-law worked for a bread company, and they didn't trust the local grocery stores to put their stock out on time, and they wanted to not lose those sales. So they actually had somebody drive from store to store and actually pull the bread out of the back and put it on the shelf for the grocery store. So they didn't want the grocery store to do that themselves. So I thought that was pretty funny because, yeah, you're right. Like, if you're not stocked up, then, yeah, you're not making sales. And a lot of times stuff's just sitting in the back because nobody knows the shelf is empty. So I could see maybe replacing this with maybe cameras that can actually look down and like kind of like scan the shelves like from afar somehow. Or I've actually seen them actually having cameras on the shelves as well. So yeah, there's probably a bunch of different ways they could do this. But
well, speaking of refilling empty areas, you have a story about trees.
Yeah, good good pass. Yeah, there's actually a company out in Canada that is called Flash Forest, and they recently have retrofitted like drones to plant trees like in like areas that had like forest fires or like a lot of trees were dying off, or deforestation in general is a huge problem, so they were developing these to fight that. And these are actually seem to be pretty like good at their job. They can plant 40,000. Like currently, what they're doing right now is they're planting 40,000 trees in just 1 month with these drones up in north of Toronto, where there's a big wildfire.
Yeah, and the goal is to have 1 billion plants planted by 2028. And they've planted trees in Hawaii, and they're doing it all over the world where these areas have been decimated by fire or deforestation. And they're trying to bring back natural habitats for like the birds and all. So they're planting local pine and spruce trees in that area in Toronto and all. They're trying to bring it back. I really didn't realize that we have a net loss of trees of 7 billion a year.
That's a lot of trees, and that's trees we'll never probably see again.
Yeah, and they said like this, because they're trying to do this to help combat climate change and all, and they said the older trees are better for it. That's because they can hold more carbon dioxide and all, but... Yeah,
they're bigger, they're larger, they can do a lot more probably.
But this is like a start of something they can do to help repopulate these forests and all.
Yeah, it's really cool like how they set it up. They actually have mapping drones that go into an area, and they'll like scan the ground and like look for like places where they think these trees will grow, or like where it's fertile soil. And then they'll actually go back with other drones and drop the seed pods, or like in areas where it's hard to get to, they have pneumatic cannons on the drones to shoot the seed pods into the ground. And I thought that was pretty inventive. Yeah, so I think it's a good idea, and this whole piece of tech like they're working on is probably going to be great for the environment and great for like as more companies pick this up, there's going to be a lot of copycats, and I think that's a good thing. So nothing but praise for this company. I hope to see them like grow and spread. You know,
spread their seed.
Yeah, spread their seed.
Speaking of companies and growing, Facebook. Facebook is actually doing something pretty cool, which I find interesting because it's something I have to deal with, is hearing loss. And they're trying to combat hearing losses in augmented reality. And they have these, they're working on this technology with these glasses. I feel like we talk about glasses every podcast. But they have these glasses where, like, they're trying to work it out, like, so if you can, they'll pick up sound better of what the person wants to hear. So if you're in, like, a crowd, like, they've been practicing this in bars. Like, if you're focusing, like, at a loud bar, if you're focusing on something, the glasses were able to pick up the volume of that conversation and then tone down the volume on other conversations in the augmented reality, which is, like, something, like, I have issues with is, like, when there's, like, multiple sounds going on, if I'm at, like, an event or something like that, like, picking up the person talking to me with the other sounds coming in my ear.
From what I read, it actually monitors your eyes and where it's looking, and also maps the room and all the sound in the room. So it knows like the sound profiles and like where everything's coming from, so it can filter out the noises that you shouldn't hear and amplify the noises you should hear. So that's, like you said, that's beneficial for people who can't hear very well, because how hearing aids work is they just amplify everything. And those are aren't even useful at all in like a big crowded setting. Like a lot of people just probably take their hearing aids out at a setting like that.
Yeah, the hearing aid is just to amplify the sound that you're hearing. I mean, they are useful and all, but in a big crowd like that and trying to focus on one sound, it is harder. So this would be interesting, like, if they can actually do it. It also is showing, like, Facebook is trying to branch out in technology. They haven't really shown yet what they want to do. But, I mean, they're trying to be like Apple and Google. Or, like, well, Google, really, where, like, they set off as this internet company, and now they're in, like, so many different areas of technology, you know. And that's what Facebook's trying to do, which makes sense.
That brand is kind of like still has like a black mark for a lot of people though. So like they don't have the same love that a Google or an Apple would have, or they have a rabid fan base. But they do own Oculus now, which makes VR glasses, goggles. So you know their foot is in the door with that tech, and then they have their smart home devices that are like video calling devices.
Yeah, the Portal.
The Portal. So yeah, they're starting to make inroads into the house. I'm not sure how well they sell, honestly, but the Oculus is a popular brand. They did say they're trying to make this AR stuff work for other disabilities. Like for instance, I have pretty poor vision, and so they would basically use these AR glasses to like kind of crisp up the image. Make it clearer. So on top of what glasses could do, they would even
so they would just be glasses.
No, but glasses don't. My type of eye condition, glasses barely do anything for me.
Yeah,
like they don't work. So if something could be like right in front of my face and actually just kind of like show me a video representation of what I'm seeing, just a lot clearer and more high fidelity, then that would be useful. Especially because a lot of people who have like vision loss, glasses don't necessarily help them.
Okay, well, let's get back on topic. You want to go into our feature topic?
Yeah, let's jump into the main story today. So this is something near and dear to my heart. Ever since I was a kid, I've been super excited about flying cars, and will it ever happen?
Well, you come from a flying family.
Yeah, my whole family flies in vehicles, not physically.
Well, your dad was a pilot. Your grandfather was a pilot.
Yeah, my uncle's a pilot. Yeah, I come from a flying family. But, you know, I've always had popular science magazines, and that's like the number one thing that they probably always covered is flying cars and vehicles. And it's always been a pipe dream, and nobody's ever really thought it would actually happen.
Yeah, but today we're talking about electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles.
No, yeah, we're basically talking about flying taxis, and those should be coming to life within the next 3 to 10 years, I would say.
Well, Uber wanted to have something going by the end of this year, but
that's not happening. But yeah, the electric, what was it? Electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle, which is basically a fancy helicopter, sort of. Or it's going to take the place of what a helicopter will do in a lot of cases.
Yeah, think big drones. That's what they are. The human-carrying drones is what they kind of look like, what they're modeled after. That's a lot bigger and can usually hold between 2 and 5 people is what they're aiming for.
These have a lot of use cases, and there's a lot of companies like in on this, like a lot of companies. I think I saw 7 big ones, but then there's a bunch of other like 15 to 20 other companies that are also making these vehicles and trying to like corner the market on a certain niche.
Yeah, it's like a gold rush for this market that might not exist or might exist, but they're projecting it to be a $1.5 trillion market by 2040. So people think there's money to be had in this market, and it's not just like in America. This is all over the world that these companies are working on it.
Yeah, and they're the first thing they have to do is kind of like conquer the helicopter and like what it does, because right now there's helicopters are used for a lot of things, obviously, but we don't interact a lot with helicopters. Like, when's the last time you rode on a helicopter? Probably never, right?
It was never.
Yeah, never. And I even though I come from a flying family, I've never been on a helicopter either, surprisingly. And helicopters have their uses, but they're very expensive to run. They're loud. They're fairly impractical. Just because, they're big. Lots of moving parts, so lots of maintenance, and they're pretty dangerous. They're not the safest way to travel, really. There is existing like taxi services right now using helicopters, but the tickets for those are not accessible to like a person in the middle class or lower class. Like the tickets are like $200, $250, $300 just for a 30-minute ride.
Yeah, so one thing I found, that's hypothetically, is they were doing the math. If you would take a trip from Manhattan to JFK Airport, it would be $70 for these new flying taxis compared to $200 to $225 for these helicopter rides. And I guess Uber they have their own helicopter taxi service, Uber Copter, I think it's called. So like, it's already there. The issue is these flying cars are like the new thing, and these companies don't want to just replace helicopters. They want to replace public transportation and cars. They want it to be like this is the new mode of transportation, and because it's faster, cheaper than everything else.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's ever going to be enough of them flying around to like clear up traffic on actual roads that much, but they said currently like in some cities, Cincinnati doesn't really deal with traffic to the level of like a lot of other cities, but in some cities just driving 7 miles can take you upwards of 45 minutes to travel, whereas these flying taxis would be able to do that in 3 minutes. So that's where they're going to make their bread and butter early on, is by making a convenient, say you need to get to work real fast or get to a meeting or catch a plane ride outside of the country or wherever you're going. It's just another option on top of the hill of current options that are already on the table.
Well, that's where you talk about like the demand. Like, I think a city like we are in Cincinnati, the demand might not be there, Because really, traffic isn't that bad. I mean, you occasionally get it in one area if there's an accident, and there's always an accident. And like that's when it gets bad. But like, is it enough people willing to make it worth it? Let's go back. I don't know. Try to go back to the beginning. Like, will people be accepting of flying taxis? That's the idea.
Yeah, so they already have some benefits over like a helicopter, and people are already kind of like iffy about helicopters, especially after what happened to the Kobe. But yeah, they have benefits. Like they are a lot less noisy than a helicopter would be, because they don't have huge rotors. They have like a bunch of smaller rotors, and then on top of that, they're good with redundancy. So redundancy in the aviation industry means that like if something breaks, there's something else there to take its place. So in an airplane, there's like 2 to 3 different like things that could, if something goes wrong, they have a system in place to replace that thing that goes wrong. So with a helicopter, if that engine goes out, then there's no redundancy. You have to basically like crash land it. Whereas with these newer style vehicles, basically there's going to be 4 to 6 to 8 to, there's some that have like 20 motors. And if one of those goes out, there's computer systems in place to safely guide that craft down to the earth.
And I saw like the one Uber's building, at a last resort, a parachute will pop out and guide it down.
That would be interesting.
But like going back to helicopters compared to these flying cars or flying drones, they say an average helicopter takes 5 minutes to take off. These new vehicles will be 30 seconds. Yeah,
they're electric engines, so they can fire up like that. They don't need to warm up. They don't need to do all those system flight checks and all that. Also, on top of that, they're so much cheaper. Like I saw a study that said an hour's worth of flying in a helicopter is around $200 worth of fuel. In these crafts, $4. That's pretty that's pretty cheap.
Pretty
$4 of fuel? That's almost nothing.
So some of these companies are looking at like, because there's not really a demand yet from like normal people. People like, I think people would use it, but is there like demand really there? Part of the idea some companies are looking at for medical use. We have air care. These vehicles will be able to get out faster. They will be able to land in more rural areas easier. I saw one where like it would just be set up where they would just take a person, like a doctor, to the site. They wouldn't be able to carry anybody back with them, but they could at least get a doctor out there ahead of time and get us faster. So some companies are looking more into the medical field for that because it'll be cheaper and it's faster than these helicopters and safer. And the infrastructure for these hospitals is already there because they already have these pads for hospitals.
Yeah, and it also allow like rural areas to connect easier to the cities. So I'm sure before there's lots of taxi services and stuff like that, it'll be able to interconnect rural areas to like a bigger city infrastructure with like cargo delivery and stuff like that. So like, if you need a larger package and you need it quick, I'm sure they're already experimenting with the Amazon drones and stuff like that. So that's coming down the road.
I think besides the medical taxis, there's 2 types of versions that these companies will look at. There's these short trips that will be more for like cities, like inner city, like going from the north side of a city to the south side of a city. Quickly. They don't fly that fast. They don't have that long of a battery power. But then there are also companies building like inner city trips. So like say
from like one city to another, like Philadelphia to what's the city?
New York.
Yeah, New York.
It's 2 hours away driving. So like it would be, you could hop on this and take it right there on land instead of taking the train, bus, or things like that. So there's 2 different ideas. And right now it looks like,
yeah, and they're all trying to get these rushed out the door, But if you think about the aviation industry, when you're building a new product like a flying vehicle, most vehicles go through rigorous testing and take from upwards of 10 years to even hit the market from when they start testing the product. And they're trying to get these out like by 2023, like flying. And like Alex said, Uber was hoping to do some this year, but they're not going to be able to get through all the regulation and the hurdles and get these airplane or these flying vehicles like certified and all that by then.
So like you were saying, Mike, the hurdles that these companies are going to have to go through. Let's look at two German companies I want to look at. There's Volvocopter and Lilium. Volvocopter is looking to do more of like the short trips, like 22 miles. The drone that they have now can go 68 miles per hour. And like what they're looking at is right now their drones can't land anywhere. So they're looking at building ports, Volvo ports. That is where you would go pick up the flight and it would land you there.
Yeah. So I think basically if you're doing like inside city travel, basically the infrastructure for that will look like there's going to have to be known helipads around where you would park your car, get out, and get onto the helipad. And most of these companies are like using some sort of app to like call your vehicle or like reserve a spot on the vehicle. So that's like one of the more well-known companies that are working on it, like you're saying. And
Uber's wants to do the same thing in America. They have like really big ideas, but like their first thing they wanted to make like a Uber like station, and they would have these people get picked up by pods and would take them to the heliport, and it would fly them wherever they need to go, and they would land, and then they would get on a pod and go somewhere else. That seems like a hassle, but like that's what Uber's looking at. They're, you pick like, oh, it's kind of like picking up a regular Uber. Oh, I want to be on this flight. Click it, they'll pick you up and take you there.
Yeah.
So that's like,
I don't know if we'll ever see it where it's going to land like in front of your house. I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, that's what Volvocopter wants. They want like eventually not needing these ports to land. And there's a company in China, Yihang, and like they do like 30 miles trips and they have 21 minutes of battery life, but they're working on having their propellers fold in so that it can fit in like parking lots and all and be able to pick you up.
I still think that idea is just going to need too many like hurdles because
I think that's like 30 years off.
That's such a far way off, because the reason why these are safer than like a helicopter is they always take off from the same place and land at the same place, whereas helicopters don't have the same defined travel paths. So it's going to have to be like a defined flight path for these craft to travel, and it's going to have to be like down to the minute. They're not going to be able to just deviate from those paths, because that's when dangerous things will happen. That's when accidents happen. It's going to be too controlled to do that. So I think that one company you mentioned that's going to have like actual landing pads, that's the way to go for travel inside a city.
And we have things now here, and I know other cities have it, like a park and ride when you take the bus. I used to take it when I worked, is where you go park your car somewhere and then you take the bus in, so you don't actually have to drive downtown. I can see something like that happening with these, like especially in like the suburbs. Like if you live like 40 minutes out of a city, you can go in, drive there, get a flight in, and then a flight back, and land, and that would just be like your travel. I can see that because it would be a lot faster.
That's a great idea. I think that's a great use case for it, because I live about 30 minutes from work, and I would opt in for something like that if there was a pad near my house. But the thing is, I think batteries aren't to a place yet where they can fit enough people on the craft to make it worth it, right? Because like 4 people, that's like not a lot of people.
That's the thing. Like you would need like a constant moving, kind of like gondolas. You know how like Disney just built them like ski lifts where you're just constantly getting people on and off. Like it moves quicker, but like people that's kind of like I think you would need like just a constant chain of these flying back and forth. Like one leaving,
especially because they're so small.
Yeah, and like
I'm with you. Like if it's not going to be a huge amount of people using it, because if there would be just a constant stream of these things, and there'd be noise complaints and all sorts of things.
I mean, the noise, they say they'll allow 100 times less noisy than current air travel.
But I think still loud.
They're still loud, especially they only go 1,000 to 2,000 feet up is where they want to fly. I feel like if you have a lot of them, it's going to get noisy.
Yeah.
And like the other thing is like, I know right now, all the ones that are planned are going to have a pilot in them. But Uber, once by 2030, they have them automated. So there would be no pilot. You would just get in.
Which is actually easy. It's easier to make a plane that flies on its own than a car, I think.
Yeah.
Just because there's less things to worry about. You don't have to worry about pedestrians walking in front of you. You don't have to worry about a deer. You don't have to worry about ice on the road.
Yeah. But like if you have all these companies trying to get in the market, like you're gonna need they're gonna need to be programmed. You're gonna need like an air traffic control.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna need like all these steps, and like especially if you're doing like locals. Say you have like, I think eventually it'll become like one like per city, kind of like public transportation is now. Like we have Metro, Philadelphia has SEPTA, Northern Kentucky has Tank. Like we have like. You're going to eventually just have one, because if you have multiple ones competing, like who's competing over that airspace?
You're right,
it's like,
yeah.
It's kind of like when you're at the airport, we're like, oh, we're just waiting for okay to land. And you're just sitting there. Then what's the point if you're sitting in the air waiting for the thing to land?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the traveling inside the city is really murky and it has like a lot of problems, but it has a lot of potential. Like, what were the companies that were going to travel like city to city? Like, what were those looking like?
Well, there's Vertical Aerospace in England. They seem a little bit more upscale than most of the other ones. They're looking at doing intercity journeys. And Lilium, I think it's what it's called in German. Lilium, if I'm saying that wrong. I'm sorry to all the people that work for that company. I apologize. But they're looking at doing like right now their model can do 186 miles per hour. And then it can go 189 miles. So they're looking at doing like inner cities. And I think that would be a start. Like we have by us right now, we like the air shuttle. It goes out of a small airport by my house.
Yeah.
And like it just goes like to one city. Like they go to New York, they go to Chicago. I can see that being a thing.
Yeah, because right now, all that fills that gap for us really is a bus. Like taking Megabus or something like that.
Yeah, like, especially, like, say I wanted to go to Indianapolis. Like, just hop on one of these small ones and, like, hop over there. I think that's easier to manage, but, like, what's the price of that when they
I think it'll be pretty cheap just because it's electric, and electric is so inexpensive, and they probably won't have to have two pilots to pay, maybe just one, if any. Yeah, I actually think this market will take off faster than the inside a city travel, just because I think this has more potential, just because nobody wants to like go through airport security and nobody wants to wait in line to travel an hour and a half. Like by the time you check your bags and get on the airplane, you could have just drove up there, like parked and all that stuff. Whereas these craft are electric vehicles and they have wings. So like they're not like a typical drone where they're just rotors that pick up the vehicle and just fly. They actually have wings to help lift the plane itself. So once it lifts with the rotors can rotate and push the vehicle like an airplane would fly.
Yeah, like I look at it like I'm not an Ohio State fan, but there's a lot that live in Cincinnati. And a lot that like to go up there. And if you're telling me like, oh, I can take this for relatively cheap, get junk, fly up there, go to the game, and then come back down without having to drive or anything like that, and cuts the trip, like it's an hour and a half drive already, cuts that in like, 10 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it'd be great. Like,
if the tickets were like between $50 to $100, I would definitely think about it.
And I think if you do it in like the areas like the Northeast that has like a big population by it, in like the West Coast, even I can see people doing it from like Indy to Chicago or like Milwaukee. There, like people doing it from there that usually drive to each other. I think it would connect a lot of those cities faster. I think that idea I think works. I don't see like city like travel by these drones as quickly as they think it is, because like when you look at these companies, I think they think it's just going to take off. Like it's going to like, I know they should be optimists, but like I feel like they're like really want like to be a thing. And I think a big hurdle is like, part of the reason I haven't really wanted to take a helicopter ride is like, it's kind of scary. And I don't mind flying regularly, but like, do I trust these drones? Like, I probably will, but like, I don't, like right now, like, I think there's be a lot of doubts. Because people, like, you either say these vehicles, like, people don't want to be the first person on.
I'm the opposite. I can't wait to actually give this a go once it comes out. Yeah, I'm also with you where I think it'll take off more between two cities as opposed to inside a city. But I see both markets having potential, but I see more use cases for the traveling to a nearby city, honestly.
And I know it happens a lot now in like Southern California, and that's not something like we're used to. I know a lot of like Kobe had a private helicopter, like, and that was the way he traveled. So I can see it being a thing there. The rest of the country, I just see it taking so long to be a thing.
I think some of the fear is that the traveling inside a city is going to become so expensive that it's only going to be accessible to like the rich. And it's going to kind of like keep the rich even more separated from the rest of society, and kind of like even like make that gap wider. So that's kind of the fear, where it's not going to be accessible to everybody. It's just going to be a luxury for like richer people.
Well, and especially like going back to what you were saying, is a big part of this is going to be because until these cars can actually land in like somebody's front yard or in front of their house, like they're going to need infrastructure from cities. They're going to need probably public funding to build these like this infrastructure. They're going to have public like a relationship with the government in order to do these things. And if it's something that's going to be only used for like the upper middle class or the upper class for a while, like city's really going to put a lot of money behind it to do that.
Yeah, maybe only like rich or well-to-do parts of town will have like a pod, but then like a landing pod, but nobody else will, or something along those lines.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing like these companies have to look at. Like you're going to have to, if you want a lot of people to use it, you have to make it reasonably priced. And that's what they're trying to do, but like even like a trip for like $70, like it's not something I would do that often. Like if I could take the bus for $2.
Yeah. So yeah, for traveling inside the city, $70 is a bit much for most of us just to get to work every day. Nobody spends $70 to get to work on a single day.
But like how much is it gonna be for one trip? If you're doing like inner city, are they going to be like an Uber price where it fluctuates, or
it probably will fluctuate based on demand, just like anything else. Because if it didn't, then they would not be able to fulfill like that need properly, and there'd be a lot of people just like, I didn't get my flight. What's up? Why didn't I get a ticket? So it's going to have to, fluctuate a little bit in price. But I think there's going to be, since there's so many companies in the mix, I think it's whatever market takes off, it's going to have a lot of players in that market, and I think there's going to be plenty of options. That's what's good about competition, is there's usually plenty of options, and whatever crazy idea doesn't work, it's probably just going to fail.
Well, I found it interesting, like the one article I was reading, a big proponent of this that was like promoting it was Otis Elevator Company, the company that puts in like all elevators.
Yeah.
And like it makes sense because like if these things are going to take off from roofs of buildings and all, they're going to need the elevators. Like it makes sense that like they're trying to push this too, because it's going to be a bigger business for them.
Yeah, so you're going to need those elevators to get to the top. So, yeah, they're probably like making sure they stay relevant. That's pretty funny why an elevator company would get involved.
But I can also see like this being like for a while, being like a tourist thing. Like if you go visit LA and like, oh, I want to try one of those new air travel.
Yeah,
I can see it being a tourist thing at first and then becoming like the norm later on.
Well, it's going to hit, they're hitting hipper towns first. Like they said, they're going to try to put them in LA first. And I can think of a couple other cities out west. So yeah, they definitely know their demographic and who's going to do it.
Uber was LA, Dallas, and Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah.
So I always considered the 3 coolest cities in the country.
That's true.
The world.
Australia's
not in the country. Yeah.
And I like the Uber's approach. Instead of like making them themselves, they've just like got a bunch of companies making different craft for them, and they're going to pick from the lot and say, okay, this one works for our use case, and this one works. So there's like so much variety and flying crafts out there right now.
Well, yeah, if you just look at all the different designs and all, and like, I know Uber, you said they're working with Hyundai to do them, and like, it makes sense. Hyundai has the manufacturing ability to make these.
Yeah.
But like, if you just like go and look at all like the different designs and test runs, like they are all over the place.
Yeah, we're going to have links in our show notes for all the crazy articles we found on flying taxis and vehicles like this.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see over the next couple years what actually becomes of this.
Yeah. But there's so many hurdles they're going to have to jump over first. So we'll see if they get the government regulations sorted out. The aviation industry is going to be fighting this as well. Like, you don't think like Delta Airlines and a lot of these other big companies are going to try to fight this, because they're going to be losing revenue because somebody's going to fly intercity instead of choosing a Delta flight. So I could see Delta and other companies like that, or like the aviation airlines industry in general, fighting this as well. Not to mention they're already like they said they're already short on traffic controllers. So they're going to need a lot more people doing traffic control. But yeah, whenever there's a new big thing, it's going to open up a whole new sector of jobs, honestly. And that's a plus, right?
Yeah, it's just interesting to see what would happen. Like, I'm surprised like the airlines aren't trying to get into this business. Like, they're just hoping it won't become a thing and not waste their money trying to get in, instead of trying to, expand
their catalog of like options. Yeah.
Because like, would you just looking at it with like, oh, there's this new flying taxi, I could take one from Uber, or could I take one from Delta? Well, I know Delta's been flying planes for forever. Like, it'll just be like a name recognition.
Yeah, but think about this. Like, people are going to see this as like a new hip thing, and Uber's already seen as like the younger culture's app to basically get around town. So Uber already has like that younger audience that are like seeing them as like a up and coming hip company, whereas Delta might be like left out, kind of like the taxi drivers are, like kind of mad at Uber.
Yeah.
I could see them kind of like playing that role a little bit. Obviously, Uber's not going to be able to handle travel like overseas or anything like that, but I could see them taking a small chunk of Delta's business. Or
yeah,
I'm just mentioning Delta because they're like the biggest airline. I'm pretty sure they're the biggest airline in America. So
I have no idea.
There's just a lot of things that need to change before this become a reality.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about this again and figure as more information comes out and one of these companies actually launches their first flight. Well, not like first flight, but like the first like paying customer and all.
I'm actually going to post a poll out there on Twitter to see which method you guys would rather use. Would you rather fly to another city nearby, or would you use this to travel to work or like downtown? Let me know on Twitter. You can find us at The Future Jam there. We're also on Instagram. Alex is in charge of the Instagram, and he's kind of squandered that power, I think.
I'm trying. I don't have pictures to post.
You got to make these pictures up. Like draw us near microphones or something. I don't know. I don't know what
draw
Instagram's
us in a flying car.
Yeah, draw us in a flying car. Thank you. We're also on Facebook at The Future Jam. And we have a phone number, so if you want to call us and shoot us a question or say, let us know about something we got wrong, you can call us at 513-BOT-COLA. That's easy to remember. And leave us a message, and we'll play it on an episode probably.
Or if you have any topics that you want us to cover.
Yeah, the last listener that left us a message, I played it on the last episode before we went on hiatus for like a year and a half. So, if you give us a call and leave a message, you might just put us on hiatus. So, just forewarning you. But thanks to that listener out in, I think it was out in Washington State. So, yeah, we have listeners in Washington State, and we have listeners in Africa. Because before we went on hiatus, we actually got mentioned on a blog, a top 10 tech podcast in South Africa.
That's our main market we're going after.
Yeah, that's our main market. So, and then also don't forget us to rate us and review us on Apple. We're like losing energy towards the end.
You're losing it. You're the one doing all this stuff. I'm this. Along for the ride. Well, everybody have a good night.
Everybody have a good night. This Feature Jam signing off.